Lupin's been using Beethoven's Eroica as a sleeping aid, as found by Fujiko and her new pet. She finds a postcard depicting the headquarters of the anti-criminal organisation, which has recently developed a new impenetrable safe. Zenigata is on site to verify the safe's prowess. It's 100 metres underground and the floor creaks, with the entire hallway to it acting as a microphone. The manager opening the safe reveals that it's not Zenigata he's dealing with though. That said, there are still precautions even after opening the safe, such as the nuclear reactor that goes off if any sound is heard. Not to mention the elevator records weight, so if even a button has fallen off, the reactor will activate. The guards reveal that Zenigata is still in Paris as Lupin wraps things up, so he's forced into a daring escape. 4 months pass, with Jigen and Goemon being called out to a remote cabin. Lupin's developed a device that can cancel out all sound. The problem is that the sound of the device itself is still an issue. Jigen and Goemon leave him to it, passing him a portable radio for some relaxation. As Lupin puts on Eroica again, he notices the sound successfully cancels it out. The gang make a nighttime break into the anti-criminal organisation's building. Goemon cuts the power and Lupin rigs up the cameras with photos. They then head down to the safe's hallway and turn on the Beethoven. Jigen disables the cameras and they move to open the safe. Just as Jigen worries things are going too well, Zenigata emerges, brandishing a button that will summon the guards. Lupin turns down the music, threatening to atomise all of them and forcing Zenigata to surrender the button. The gang grab what they need and bring Zenigata with them. Remembering the weight issue, Lupin gives Zenigata a balloon to sit on. Doesn't stop him from having fun teasing Zenigata though. At the top, Goemon cuts through the wall and pops the balloon, setting off the reactor. The manager and Zenigata can only despair as the building goes down in flames. The head of security is still an issue though, setting his tiger on the gang. Thankfully, Lupin is able to make short work of him, and well, what's one more SSK in the long run? This was quite an enjoyable episode, as I like it when it focuses on a seemingly impossible task and how Lupin plans to overcome it. One has to wonder how Zenigata was able to get into the safe ahead of time and how he planned to get out given the whole weight issue though. Still, it was a nice take on Zenigata's penchant for popping up out of nowhere if Lupin's nearby. You might remember that I said in the first Series 1 video, among others, that Lupin was a DC fan. The first real instance was in Secret of Mamo, showing Lupin posing with a bunch of DC characters in a magazine article, based on an actual article in fact. But this episode is the first to see him actually fanboying about it. Anyway, on to the episode. The gang are in Harlem as Lupin is more than a bit enthusiastic to see Superman. The rest of the gang aren't all that impressed with the movie and leave him to watch it 17 more times. As Lupin leaves, he's held up and marched into an alley. Emptying his pockets, his would-be robber gives himself away by complaining there isn't enough money for a single ice cream. On top of that, his gun's not loaded anyway. The boy introduces himself as Chico. As he runs off to get another ice cream, a sound truck passes by. Chico tells Lupin that it belongs to Marcane, who supposedly wants to clean up Harlem, but that an old motto is not to trust anyone in Harlem. Zenigata's riding alongside Marcane, so Lupin makes a quick exit. Each grabbing a bike, Zenigata chases Lupin through Harlem. They also manage to foil a robber, twice. The third time he just knocks himself out to save the trouble. Eventually they end up at the river, with Chico having provided a boat to help Lupin. Lupin notes that Chico was taking bets on who'd win, but the money's been taken by Marcane. Chico did get an invite to a costume party in return, handing it to Lupin as part of Marcane's plan. Lupin decides on a Superman costume, naturally. Upon arriving at the party, the lights go out and Marcane greets Lupin. Lupin's then hung upside down and told he'll be taking part in a special shooting competition. It's a 10-round match, with each round adding another gunner to the fray. The lights do go out at the start of the round, mostly because hurting their aim means Marcane gets more paying customers that way. Zenigata grabs Chico, wanting to learn of Lupin's current location. Upon doing so, he charges the gang's hotel room, asking Jigen and Goemon for help. The final round is set to begin, this time with the lights on. Lupin accounted for this, swinging in just the right manner to let the bullets hit his bindings and break him free. His first target is to show Superman's power, throwing Marcane through a window. That said, he does still have to deal with a bunch of costume killers, though Jigen and Goemon step up to help with that. As Zenigata runs around arresting everyone he can, Lupin gets ready to burn the money due to it being tainted. Before he can do so, Chico appears, taking aim at Lupin and reminding that you can't trust anyone in Harlem. Lupin trusts Chico anyway, and it's revealed that his gun wasn't loaded again. Lupin burns the money and tells Chico to grow up strong, leaving Harlem with Fujiko as she ditches her date for wanting to see... well, take a guess. Not the most substantial episode, but nothing outright bad either. It's a small thing, but a nice touch that Zenigata grabbed Chico to learn where Lupin was currently hiding, given he last saw Chico with Lupin. I imagine the costume party would have been a copyright nightmare had Jenny still been dubbing episodes by this point though, Superman or not. One slight negative I have is that this and the last episode seem to draw out the time with extensive chase sequences. There's some entertainment to be had, don't get me wrong, but it does feel like they were drawing things out a bit here. A man named Gelanin shoots Fujiko off a cliff. Meanwhile, Lupin is at the Statue of Liberty waiting for her when he hears a woman screaming for help. He picks her up and gets her away from her pursuers, one of whom is Gelanin, using a truck to separate them. The problem is, the girl has no memory of who she is, but Lupin vows to help her. Lupin's first method is to try hypnosis to regress her through her past, but he doesn't get any results. He then calls Zenigata and asks him to look through the FBI and ICPO missing person files. Zenigata finds out his star sign, but not much else. Meanwhile, under the Statue of Liberty, Gelanin discusses a treasure tied to Alexander the Great's battle with Darius III, which includes the Eternal Rainbow Sapphire. The girl is the key to finding the treasure. Jigen's investigation on the girl's kidnappers turn up the name Red Spider, which triggers the girl to write something down without even thinking. Upon researching the writing, they discover it to be Old Arabic, so decide to fly out to Persia and look for clues there. With Gelanin's men pursuing, the girl seems to have vague memories of a crystal ball at a fortune teller's, but they're attacked thanks to said fortune teller selling them out. In the fight, the girl is knocked down and this allows her to remember her name, Yana. Lupin is surrounded and sentenced to death as she's taken away by Gelanin, however. Gelanin scans her mind and discovers she's the daughter of Darius, still alive over 2,000 years on. Fujiko, who's already survived one gunshot and cliff fall prior to this, listens in on them. She then bribes the guards to get the rest of the gang out of prison. Gelanin travels out to the location of the treasure with Lupin in pursuit. Upon seeing only ruins, he grows angry at Yana, but Lupin saves her from harm. In the ensuing fight, however, Yana is shot in the arm by Gelanin. She claims she won't die just yet, and a tornado appears, which in turn reveals a tower where the treasure is held. Despite Jigen and Goemon trying to stop Gelanin, his cat manages to grab the Eternal Rainbow. Lupin charges after Gelanin, managing to shoot it out of his hand as he tries to escape by helicopter. The sapphire is tied to Yana's life force, but she's happy to pass on knowing that Lupin is worthy of possessing it, and thanking him for helping her. The gang overlook the site of the treasure one last time before heading back with some involuntary help from Zenigata. Entertaining enough episode, and the action didn't feel too drawn out this time. I do feel like Gelanin is just thrown in without too much of who he is, something the series has generally otherwise been getting better about, but it does manage to prove an intimidating antagonist at least. Lupin's on the way to a cemetery to pay respects to a recently deceased mentor, Piccolo, passing by an old woman on the way. Spotting a watch on the tombstone and remembering the woman misplacing her watch, he realises she's Piccolo's wife. Giving her a lift back into town, he learns that Piccolo's possessions were recently taken by the police, so vows to help get them back. He calls the gang to help, and she compliments him on being a very nice musician, having no knowledge of his criminal activities. Piccolo's house is situated right across from the local police station, where Zenigata is keeping a watch on the seized property. The gang arrives, introduced as Schubert Goemon, Mozart Jiggin and Fujiko Tchaikovsky. Lupin explains that the plan is to dig underground across to the police station, though Zenigata's on the ball and prepares for Lupin's breaking through. Using a record playing classical music to drown out the noise, the gang begin their dig across, and Fujiko stores their weapons in the instrument cases. They also manage to be quick on the draw when Madame Piccolo checks in on them. Eventually they reach the police station, but a cage drops as soon as they enter. Zenigata comes in and mentions he knew Lupin would chomp at the bit when he learned that Piccolo had died. Parading the gang through the streets, Madame Piccolo believes it ought to be set up for a music show. Remembering where she stored the weapons, Fujiko asks her to get the gang's instruments. Lupin breaks out of their transport to cause a distraction and grabs a gun as he's locked back up. They're forced to take a diversion due to roadworks and end up in a junkyard. A crane grabs the transport and the police chief reveals he wanted Piccolo's possessions for himself. Zenigata's been taken with them as he's too much of a law-abiding cop, so Lupin offers a truce in exchange for helping Madame Piccolo. Speaking of which, she arrives with the instrument cases, allowing the gang to break free, following Lupin shooting at the crane controls. The gang then take out the police as Lupin convinces her it's all a big show. She's impressed by it all as the gang take a bow. Zenigata then visits Piccolo's grave, revealing he honoured his end of the truce. This one was pretty clearly an homage to the 1950s classic The Lady Killers. We don't talk about the 2004 version. Granted, this one was a much more benevolent take on the premise. Plus, even if it hadn't, the gang may be greedy, but they usually don't try to kill each other over a treasure. It also ends with the old lady of the piece none the wiser to, admittedly, a bit of a stretch, but ultimately harmless degree. A few instances of noticeable repeated animation here and there, but besides that, a fun episode to watch. Next time, a mahjong set in China, a battle with a superhero, statues in Stonehenge, and a deranged gourmet take us to episode 96. Until then.